So here we have a very fine scene of a layout under construction. So Ralph, can you tell me just a little bit about the process you went through in this railroad room in terms of sizing it out and
layout
and how you put it together?
Well, I have a large roll of brown craft paper,
yes,
wrapping paper, and what I did, my son and I, we put brown paper around all the walls wherever I was going to put benchwork.
Right.
And we drew out the benchwork 1-to-1 scale, like full scale,
yes,
on the paper. And then I transferred it to the benchwork once I had it in place.
So the room was cleaned out completely and this paper was on the floor, and you sort of decided where the railroad was going to be and where the walking spaces were going to be and that sort of thing?
Yep. Now this room started out when my younger son, he went into the, he's an audio engineer.
Yep.
We had a sound studio built down here for him.
I can see the roof is, and the sound here has got a unique quality to it. It's all the little foam pieces.
Sound deadening in the walls. There's a double ceiling with the sound deadening in the ceiling, plus that foam on the ceiling as well.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to start stripping down. I'm going to add more fascia in here. LED lighting. But in the meantime, before I get to the lighting, I have to finish what I've started here.
Yeah.
I do have a complete loop at the moment, but it doesn't work properly because I made some alterations, so I have a little short that I have to deal with.
Just on a reverse loop type of short?
Yeah.
It's fairly complex track work, which is going to end up, I guess, creating these unknowns.
In order to save the footprint, or to keep a smaller footprint, these two rails go into a gauntlet track.
Yeah.
And that gauntlet track is 26 feet long.
I see.
And it goes all the way over to here.
So it's in back underneath the tunnel there.
All back in there.
Yep.
Otherwise I would have had to have a 10-inch space. And you wouldn't have been able to walk by here because this would have been double track.
Yes.
And it would have forced that out a bit more too. So by putting it in the space of one track, I get two tracks.
I see.
Now the electronics that I'm going to have to put in for lights, so you know there's an engine there, so they don't crash, that'll come later.
Yeah. So this is quite a harbor scene you have over here with a big bridge.
With a big bridge.
What's your plans in here? What's going to happen along the wall? And
I'm waiting for a couple of pieces of gator board to put in here so that I can lift my town out, because there's 3 sets of tracks in there.
I see. Underneath.
Underneath this. And if I have any derailments, I have to be able to get in there.
Right.
And like we talked last night, I'm going to overweight my cars to try and eliminate any derailments. But what I'm looking at right now is getting the town set up, and I'm trying the old forced perspective thing as well.
Sure.
I have an HO town here. Up on top of my helix, I'm going to put an N-scale town.
I see.
And I have a small loop of N-scale track that I'm going to run a Peter Witt streetcar on.
I can see that there's a bridge with some N-scale vehicles on back.
That's actually an HO bridge.
Oh, okay.
It's a Tyco bridge that I turned into a highway.
Right.
And that was just to fill that space in the helix so you don't see underneath.
Looks like there's been an accident on the bridge.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
Must have been an elbow at one point, but I can see the N-scale track up in the back there.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. And then you've got lots of tunnels, and this is like a helix, I guess, from point A to point B?
This is the helix here.
Yeah.
And it comes down to this level. And it starts off from that, well, it comes from that bridge. So
yes.
I start climbing, or in this case going down.
Yes.
At a 2% grade. And it finally reaches the deck over by that wooden trestle underneath it.
Right.
Like where that building is.
Yep.
So that's deck level. So if you follow it back around again, it starts to climb here, goes back up again across the trestle into here.
So it's a sort of a dog bone loop
Yep.
with a
Helix
to give you the two different levels. Well, that's terrific. What is the space size in here roughly that you're working in?
The room is 20 by 10.
20 by 10. Yeah, so you're getting a lot of railroading by having it loop back on itself.
Yeah. That was the idea.
Yeah.
I was thinking of double main line.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would have been able to fit it in properly.
Mm-hmm.
I would have done, I guess, but for what I wanted to do, the single main line works out better.
You got some terrific rock work here. It looks very realistic. Can you talk a little bit about a couple of the techniques you were using?
This part right here,
yeah.
I was experimenting with this. This is the pink foam.
Right.
And I just take a screwdriver to it, or a pick, and start pulling off pieces.
Yeah, picking at it and breaking bits away.
Yeah, and that's the way it came out.
Well, that's very realistic. Where'd you pick up that idea from?
Off the internet.
Really?
Yeah.
Isn't that a marvelous thing? Then over to the right here, there looks like a different type of rock that you've been working at.
This here is sofa cushions.
Right.
Foam.
Bits of foam, yeah.
But it's not spongy anymore, because when I put it in, I dipped it in the plaster of Paris.
Right.
Squeezed it, got it permeated with the plaster of Paris, put it in place,
mm-hmm.
and let it dry for a few days, and then came back and brushed on a little bit more, just to get rid of that foam look.
And it sort of has that smoother look that you would find where the water's kind of washed up on the shore, right?
Right.
That's the idea of broken rock. And above that, it looks like a third type that you've worked with.
It is. This one here I got from Sterling Models.
Oh, yes.
And he does some really fine work that I just fell in love with this rock when I saw the mold. And the bridge abutments are made by the same company. And when that comes, when you make the mold of that, it's a piece this big.
How big? Okay, it's just a small piece.
So you have to cut it and fit it together.
Okay. So they provide you with the mold and you use your own plaster and you can make as many copies as you want.
Yeah.
That's Sterling Models.
Sterling Models.
It's really fine when you look at that work
and
there.
I used it along the harbor wall as well.
Yeah. Huh.
And the nice part of plaster of Paris, as opposed to hydrocal or dental hydrocal or whatever, plaster of Paris is a little bit softer.
Yes.
It's easier to work with. So all of those wooden ribs that are in there, I took the width of a file, a bastard file.
Yes.
And just made a groove in the plaster, and the wood fit right into it.
Isn't that clever? It looks very realistic. I like the coloring of the stones and the irregularity. That's a nice product.
Yeah. Now the coloring I did with house paint.
Yeah.
Product from Home Depot. What the heck's it called? It's a bear paint.
Yes.
And it's called Thorny Branch.
Thorny Branch.
And what I do is I take a tub with about 2 inches of water in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I take maybe 3-4 brushfuls.
Yes.
And I make a wash.
Yeah, and then you just absorb
and just
it in.
Put it right on the plaster, and that's the color it goes.
There seems to be a lot of variation, though.
Once you put the color on, you can wash it off with clear water.
Yeah.
And you get your highlights on the top.
Okay. Yeah, it looks very, very nice.
And then, of course, everybody's heard of Murphy's Law.
Yes.
Well, I have a couple of turnouts in places that have gone wrong for me. The turnout decided it wanted to give up. Now, I make my turnouts with fast tracks.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a Murphy panel right here, because I have a turnout in there.
No, you wouldn't even have known it was there.
So I want to be able to get at it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one thing that's helping me resolve my short issue, because I can get at the end of those tracks here.
Yes. Oh, that's great.
And it's just
styrofoam,
wood lattice work, And on top of the, or not wood lattice, cardboard lattice.
Yep.
On top of that, I put a layer of masking tape.
Yep.
And then plaster cloth.
Yep.
And then my rock work.
It's nice and lightweight too. Very neat. Huh. Fantastic. I see here's a couple examples of some of the locomotives that you've been working on. Or have worked on.
Have worked on.
Yeah. A scrape on the tank there.
Like somebody ran into it.
Yeah, yeah. I think if you actually saw 9959 in the real model or the real prototype,
there's a dent in the
tank. There's a dent in the tank right above there on that side, eh?
Yeah.
Very nice. And then over here you have an SD40-2. And the black has been lightened up a bit. So what technique do you use to lighten your black colors?
I mix a nice, very light wash of Tamiya white.
Yes.
And alcohol.
Yeah, and then you just airbrush it on.
Airbrush it on.
And it fades out everything.
Liquid, when you look at it, it's like the liquid you would have after you cleaned your brushes.
Ah, okay.
So you may have to put 2 or 3 coats on to see a difference.
Yes.
But it's better to go light than to do it all at once, and then you got too much on.
Now in this model over here, when you look at the greens, it reminds me very much of when you see those armored vehicles, the tanks. That style, especially the way the shadowing works, and it brings out all the details on the roof.
Now the green, because it's green,
yeah.
I did it a slightly different way
right.
to fade it. If you look at a color chart where you have your primary colors,
yeah,
opposite of red is green.
Yes.
And if you add green to red paint, you will tone it down.
Yes. You warm it, I guess, to some degree.
Yeah. I'm not sure what you call it, but that's mixed with the white, and that's how I came up with it. So there's green mixed into it, or pardon me, red mixed into it on the green.
Well, it really looks great. And the shadows?
The shadows, in this case, were done with the AKs as well.
Yes.
For the lines, and down in this area is the AIM powders, and there were some more powders applied in here and along the top.
Well, it makes all the doors and louvers just pop right out, eh?
Yeah.
That's really nice. You're telling me a little story about when you were putting the handrails back on the locomotive. I think that would be a great one to share.
That was absolutely wild. I was pulling my hair out because I did this engine for you.
Yeah.
Right? And here I was working in my room upstairs on the 2nd floor. Hardwood floor. So if anything drops, I can hear it. Generally, the area that it fell into.
Yeah.
I had the front stair handrail in a pair of tweezers, and I was just holding it in place while I could get into the railing holes. And I guess I squeezed too hard.
Yeah.
This material doesn't like being held in tweezers, and off it went. I never heard it hit the floor. I looked for about 2.5 hours. I could not find it anywhere. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was on the internet trying to find out if Cato still had the railing sets. They weren't making them anymore because I have another engine that I needed railing sets for. I didn't know what I was going to do. I guess I was going to bend some wire or something to get it to fit. About a half an hour, 2.5 hours later, I'm down in the living room taking a break from doing the modeling, and the cat walked by. And there's the railing on the back of the cat. Static electricity just held it there, and the cat didn't feel it. So I found the railing.
So there you go.
It was that railing, not the one on the other side. It was this side.
Isn't that something, eh? So a little miracle there. Yeah. It's good to have a cat in the room, and just in case you can't find it, check your cat.
Check your cat.
Yeah. That's amazing. So there's some of that stonework without the stain applied.
Yep.
It really is quite phenomenal. You can use it in bridge abutments and all kinds of things.
And the interesting part, like you use, I use Sculptamold, you use Celluclay, and basically that's all I'm going to do to fill this in and bring it up to the stonework.
Yep. Make irregular pieces on the wall.
Yeah.
That's terrific.
Now, my barge scene I saw in Craftsman magazine. The lakes in BC,
yes,
they used to transfer logs and so on by rail.
Yep.
But they, instead of doing tunnels and so on around the lakes, they would go on barges across the lakes to rails. So I have this picture up here that I'm trying to model where the tracks actually went below the water.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm trying to simulate that here. I think I'm going to have to change the angle a bit, but
I can see where the depression is here.
So when I put the Envirotex in, or the magic water, whatever I use, I'm going to bring it up to the top of the ties, not the rail.
Well, it's going to be an interesting job because you can see as well in the photograph that there's quite a few ripples and parts. Obviously, it won't be able to go as deep because you want your trains to run across it.
Right.
But it's got these nice golden brown colors, and yeah, it should work out well. Maybe you could even maybe experiment on a separate piece before you apply it to your layout, right?
Yeah.
Because you might find that particular acrylic gel or
I have a couple
gloss.
of gels in mind. The Magic Water and Envirotex come out like mirror smooth, right?
Yeah, and that problem with it settles and leaks everywhere, where the gel has a tendency to hold its own. And it will level as long as it's not the real heavy gel.
Well, I am going to use Magic Water or Envirotex just to build it up a bit.
Sure.
And I'm going to have to build a dam, and that's what I was trying to do here. But I'm not sure this is going to work because I want a nice straight edge here so that I can peel it off afterwards and polish it up so you can see in it.
Yeah.
Because I want to be able to see fish in the water. I mean, BC is famous for salmon, right?
Yes.
So that's what I want to see.
And here's another, there's a Norfolk Southern beast.
Another one that was done for you.
Yeah, and then what did I go and do?
You pulled your layout down.
I did, yeah.
And thanks to you, the engine's now mine.
That's right, it's here for good. You should have seen the look on his face last night. I said, oh gee, I think I should take it home with me. He just has this big pout on his face. No, it's definitely yours. And that's nice. I mean, look at the way that's all faded and the way the rust is showing. This is a good rust bucket. How did you get that rust effect on the roof like that? It's almost see-through. You can see the black underneath.
In over here?
Yeah.
It's done with a sponge.
Yes.
And gouaches.
Oh, okay.
And depending on how much or what effect you want, you can actually do festering rust as well by using hairspray on a brush, dip it in the powder, and then put powder on there, and you end up with texture.
Right.
So you may have a blistering sort of rust.
Yep.
And then you come back over it with the gouaches, and it sort of smooths, not smooth it out, but it uniform color.
See the trucks and the tank are nicely rusted as well. That's done the same way.
Yep.
That's very interesting. Wow, terrific job. It's going to look nice thundering around your railroad.
I think so.
So what else have you got to show us today on the railroad down at this end?
Well,
a few things?
Not only am I building a layout, I'm a winemaker. So I have access. I have a wine cellar here.
Yes.
But I need access to the wine cellar. So I decided rather than a lift out, I'm going to put in a swing gate.
Right. Wow.
Which is what I do, and it gives me full access to the door.
And it looks like you've got a world of pins here.
My world of pins. That's going to be my vineyard because it's to the wine cellar door.
Right.
And where every pin is going to be a grapevine.
Yep.
In rows going from front to back.
Yeah, and then I see you have a photo on the wall of what the backdrop's going to be look like when you paint it.
Yep.
So you got layers of grape rows, and it looks like some sort of a bushier plant. And it's layered back. You can see in the photograph there's several linear clumps of greenery in different colors, and that's what gives you the depth.
Yeah.
Very nice.
And I don't know how well you can see that, but that's going to be the vine.
Yeah.
I've got some paste for the trunk of it, and I'll use ground foam on the rest.
Right.
And it'll just fit in place where every pin is. There'll be one of these.
Right. And then there's usually something strung in between, I guess, each one. Is that
Yeah,
right?
but I don't think you're going to see it with that camera. I have easy line here.
Right.
And I have thread on this one, and you really can't see either one of them.
No.
I may change the color of thread to gray.
Yep.
But then once the vine is in place, you're not going to see that either. So.
Awesome.
I have a whole area planned. Like I say, once I get the space in the next room, that'll be my workshop. But right now, this is it. I've been doing my painting basically on top of the layout, which is not a good place for my airbrush. So I'm putting in a paint booth, and it's going to go under here.
Well, that's great. You got a mine up in the corner. And a really nice, looks like there's another little mine down here underneath. And that's pretty neat. It's just looks like an old abandoned mine of sorts. The door's all closed up there.
Exactly.
That's pretty neat. And I guess this is the makings of the giant waterfall.
Giant waterfall. I saw that in the magazine as well. So there's a picture on the wall of what gave me the idea.
Sure.
That was in one of those send in your photographs to Model Railroad, and they post them. What do they call that section? Where they post readers' photographs. That's what I want. Nice tall waterfall with big trees and scale buildings on the top to try and force perspective.
Yes.
And of course my wife's Danish, so those buildings are from Denmark.
Why not? Yeah.
And this here is a cheap model kit as well. It's the Pickle Factory by Tyco.
Okay.
And the roof I did with my weathering techniques. I made a template to do three pieces of corrugated steel at a time, all spaced out, and each one of them is like you do 3 at a time because I had 3 rows.
I remember doing that once at a Craftsman Structure show. I took a Tyco garage, you know, those real classic ones, and used all the weathering techniques that I'd learned from Dave Ravella and Brian Nolan. And I just entered it along with these really fine scale kits. And people were going by and they were looking at it and saying, look, somebody's taken the old Tyco kit and they made a Craftsman Structure out of it. So yeah, it's amazing what a bit of paint and weathering can do. It's something that we all can do, that's for sure.
There's something else I did. This is for my harbor. It's an Osborne kit.
Osborne models.
And it's done so that it's laminated pieces together. You have to form it with sandpaper. But it turned out pretty good. The decals are from 2 different aircraft.
Okay.
The rondelle, the flag, are from a 1/72nd scale. 1/72nd scale Voodoo. The lightning strike is from a P3 Orion. 1/160th scale.
Okay. And it works, of course.
And it works.
Yeah. It's a nice looking model.
So that's going to be in my harbor, along with the tugboat that I'm building.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to scratch that as well. There's the plan.
Yeah. Well, this has been quite a tour today. It's been great to come by and visit and see all the things that you're doing. I think when you look at this railroad, it represents where many people are at in the development of their ideas. And it's exciting to see that you've got so much on the go and that there's progress being made. It's a slow, long-term process, but you can see it coming in so many different areas. And I'm looking forward to seeing it someday in the future when it gets near completion.
So am I.
And hopefully you will be able to find the time between 9 and 2 o'clock in the morning to make progress on your layout. Thanks very much for having me by today.
You're welcome. Thank you.